For almost 100 years, St Andrew's College has opened its doors to students from all across Canterbury, the South Island, and perhaps even the world. But life has dramatically changed, starting with a roll of 19 students in 1916 to over 1,400 students today. St Andrew's College was founded in 1917 in Scottish and Presbyterian traditions. The fact that we opened our doors is due to the determination of Reverend Thompson, whose driving ambition was to educate the sons of the Presbyterian and Scottish community of Canterbury.
Well, the founding of St Andrew's College actually goes back to the first Scottish settlers arriving in Canterbury. So they arrived, and in 1855 they approached the Crown for a land grant to set up a church and a school, because the Scottish religion also goes hand in hand with their education. So the Crown approves this, and in 1857 the first Scottish Presbyterian church opens in Canterbury, and this is St Andrew's. So then we jump ahead now to 1915, when Reverend A.T. Thompson becomes minister at St Andrew's. Now one day he gets a phone call that there's a letter that he might want to check out, and this letter is from 1855. So the story goes, he jumps on his bike and he's really excited, and he gets there and he reads the letter and he rereads the letter, and he finds out that there has actually been land put aside for Scottish Presbyterian school. So he hurriedly puts together a proposal, and he gets unanimous support from Christchurch Presbyterian community. And in December 1916, it is all approved, and he now has full permission to start a Presbyterian college.
Despite Reverend Thompson's enormous enthusiasm for the college, we couldn't have been launched in more uncertain times. The war in Europe was in full swing, but luckily life at the college was relatively unaffected.
Because the college was founded during the end of World War I, most of the difficulties have always been financial. For example, the Great Depression was so close to actually closing the school. What had happened is in 1918, the school had moved to Strowan. Now they had a large mortgage and a large bank overdraft because they had to set up the campus to accommodate students. Now during the Great Depression, worldwide effects were unavoidable. So in 1933, the school roll dropped from 303 to 188, and the borders dropped from 99 to 39, which just shows you how pressed the parents were to pay fees. So many ideas were floated around of how to save the school, and one of them was the actual selling of Strowan House and moving to a smaller campus in Burnside. However, what actually saved the school was a huge fundraising fete set up by Mr. G.M. Smith and G.A.M. Hilson. Now this fete had everything from boat rides down Strowan to pony rides, stalls, sideshows, Ferris wheel rides, and they actually ended up raising £1,642, which is equivalent to $195,000, which is an amazing effort. Now that, combined with selling off small sections on the Norman's Road side of campus, actually helped the school avoid bankruptcy so it could continue.
The Second World War changed the course of history. It shaped and changed New Zealand and the college with major losses of life, with 34 students, staff and old collegians losing their lives in battles overseas throughout the war. Not only this, but life at the college was affected, with staff and students alike being on edge and worrying about families and students who were fighting overseas to protect our country. The war had lasting effects on the college in terms of losses of life. It was also believed that young New Zealand men needed to be prepared for any global conflict. And from this, the cadets program was born. Following both wars, cadet forces were set up all over the country and the world. For St Andrew's College students, cadets was compulsory and prepared our boys to fight and protect their country. The program included trainings after school and longer camps, often at Castle Hill. The lodge was built in 1954 and rebuilt in 2010, and it was renamed the Alice Decidey Mountain Lodge. All students have fond memories of their time spent on camps at Castle Hill, with many old collegians saying one of their highlights of their time at St Andrews being the time spent at Castle Hill. In particular being Year 10 winter camp, where students go skiing and build snow caves to spend the night in, and taking advantage of what Castle Hill has to offer in the winter time.
The Year 10 camp is a lot of fun, from flying fox, abseiling, trekking, and most importantly, snow caving.
Co-education, probably the biggest move that the school could make. It was the vision of the 6th rector of the college, Dr. John Rentoul. To paraphrase him, he believed that it was essential to have young men and women together as a part of the maturing process, so they can learn to work together and respect one another. Dr. Rentoul also says that he always imagined St Andrews College being co-educational, and for there to be a senior college that was aimed at preparing students for life at tertiary institutions.
Well, life outside of school is not gender specific. I found that coming to St Andrews College, I feel more comfortable and confident around the opposite gender. Previously to being at St Andrews College, I went to an all-girls only school, and I found that coming to St Andrews, I was able to make really close friendships with boys and create social skills that are going to benefit me in the wider world, in the working world, in the community, and life outside of school.
Going fully co-educational in Dr. Rentoul's mind was an excellent move. However, members of the St Andrews and Canterbury community weren't as excited, with multiple staff, students and old collegians signing petitions opposing the move. St Andrews College's sister school, Rangiruru, was reported as being disappointed by the proposal. Dr. Rentoul's vision became a reality in 1991 when the first girl was enrolled, and we were fully co-ed by 1998. History had been made and is in the making here at St Andrews, but the events of 2011 changed things forever.
Christchurch shattered, shock, disbelief and fear.
And are just slowly making their way out of town in a pretty much calm fashion. But at this stage, everyone is just shell-shocked.
For almost 100 years, St Andrews College stood proud. But on the 22nd of February 2011, the school was shaken in a way that no one could have anticipated. Just like the rest of Canterbury, St Andrews suffered extensive damage. Luckily, the school had designed new buildings such as the Preparatory School, Spiro Block and Tech Centre to handle such destructive forces. Sadly, other buildings were not so lucky. The boarding houses, along with Strohan House, the school's founding monument, required substantial repairs and strengthening.
Well, students and parents were a priority for us to see where we could house them. With the wonderful management and board support and a crisis team, we decided, after looking around Christchurch, to house them in 7 lots of motels on Papanui Road and 1 on Beeley Avenue. The logistics were huge, but because the culture we had and the wonderful boarding staff, it worked well.
The issues with the Memorial Chapel post-earthquake were around the structure of the chapel. So the walls on the south and the north side had pulled away from the foundations. The archway at the front had crumbled and the roof was significantly unstable. So from my understanding is that it couldn't be repaired, that it needed to be demolished. The hopes for the new Centenary Chapel, they make me smile. Look, for the last 5 years we have operated out of the gym. That has been a major inconvenience to the PE department. It has been inconvenient for numerous parties in this school, but we've held on to the sacredness of our chapel and our foundations. So the hope is that we will be moving into a sacred place, a place where we can have our chapels with little disruption to other areas of the school.
The Centennial Chapel will be ready just in time for the college's centennial celebrations, and will be officially opened on the 25th of October.
St Andrews College really needs to build upon the place that we have come to over 100 years. There's much of our college that in the future we want to preserve and that we want to be respectful of. Our Scottish traditions, our values, our Presbyterian heritage. But the other thing that's really important, always important about a St Andrews education, is the holistic approach. I mean, we pride ourselves so much on our sporting achievements, on our cultural achievements, on the way that our students are young people who give back to society. While education and the workplace is going to change, and we all know about the change of technology and what that's doing on jobs for the future, there are certain things about being a good person and a really decent human being that aren't going to change. So it's important that we hang on to all those wonderful opportunities that grow wonderful young people at StAC. Turning 100 is always a really important time, in whether it be in somebody's individual life or in a business, or in this case in an educational institution, a school. I think it's a time for us not only to celebrate turning 100 years old, but a chance for us to stop and reflect upon what has happened at St Andrews College over 100 years. There have obviously been significant changes during that time, but a lot of things have also remained the same. I consider it an enormous privilege to be the rector here at the time when we celebrate our centenary. I must say it also seems rather daunting. It feels like an enormous responsibility. Fortunately, we have a wonderful team of people who are making sure that there are plenty of occasions that we're able to celebrate. But there's obviously been a significant few years of getting things ready for the centenary. A number of buildings that have come online in the last few years, and also a lot of work through the museum that has to be collated, for example, to contribute to our centennial book, which will be published.
One can only imagine what is in store for the future here at St Andrews College. In the words of our first rector, Sydney Dickinson, our aim is to give students such an education that they will be so well prepared to face any test suitable to their years. And we as students, 100 years on, are able to face this test.